Well, good morning, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Power Breakfast. As you know, my name is Tony Stewart, and the goal of these Saturday Morning Power Breakfasts is to really help you get into the 5% Club. Now, you might say, what's the 5% Club? Well, 95% of all Americans, it's a statistical fact that 95% of all Americans, by the time they reach age 65, are either dead, broke, or still working. So the goal of these Saturday morning power breakfasts is to help you get into that 5% club. You know, this thing is kind of washing me out. I'm going to turn this off and see if this is bright enough. There we go. That's a little better. So anyway, again, my goal is to help you get in the 5% club. The stuff that we share here on a weekly basis is all geared towards help you make that happen. That being said, let's dig into what I wanted to share. As you may have known, if you've been following me, I recently went to Grant Cardone's 10X Business Bootcamp, and I've been coming back here and bringing the value. If you haven't been tracking with that, I suggest you go back and watch some of the replays of previous weeks, because there's so much there, so much information that can help you get to the next level. I want you to get it. I'm bringing it to you in bite-sized chunks so you can have some time to really get the information, devour the information, and then implement the information. So with that being said, last week I talked about something called Grant Cardone's 40% rule. And in the 40% rule, he said that you should put away for investments 40% of your income. And I got comments on it, how in the heck can you do that? We talked a couple weeks ago about how most people are living paycheck to paycheck. So the whole idea of having 40% to put somewhere sounds crazy, And I'll even go one step further. I believe that it shouldn't just be 40%, but it should be 50%. Why 50%? Because you should be taking 10% and you should be giving it to charity. You should be blessing people. You should be tithing with that money at 10%, because I believe that will bless the whole 100%, that it'll bless the 90, and you'll get better results from whatever you invest with the 90 because of what you did with that 10%. So now you say, well, how can I possibly put away half of what I make and do that? Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about some tangible steps to getting you there. First off, you got to know where you are. And I know sometimes you may think, I don't want to know. You want to take the ostrich approach and not really know what's going on with your finances. But I'm here to tell you, there's strength in knowing where you stand. There's strength in knowing exactly what your finances look like. How much do you really have coming in each month? And figure that out. And then figure out what your true expenses are. And I'll tell you, one of the things that can sneak up on you are some of these things that have annual expenses. Break them down and by 12. And that's because that's really what you're spending, right? And you have some of these subscriptions, streaming services, and things like that. Really look at what your true outgo is each month and get a true picture of where you are. And where you are is just where you are. It's not where you have to stay. It's just where you are. Now, you go one step further and you think about how you'd want to live, okay? It might be that you want to say, okay, I'm here, but in order for me to be able to sock away 50%, and we'll talk about what you do with that 50% in a minute, I have to be here. Well, my friend, what you have at that point is what's called a gap. And what we're going to be talking about today are tangible ways to fill that gap. So let's dig in a little bit here. So you figured out where you are. And, it may not be the prettiest picture in the world, but guess what? It came to pass. It didn't come to stay. We can get you from there because, again, remember, where we want to get you is into the 95% club. Let me take a step here. Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. At this point, it's been decades. And then the sequel to that book was the Cash Flow Quadrant. My friend, I highly recommend that even if you read those two books, that you go back and read them again. And the reason for that is because sometimes we know stuff, but we need to be reminded. You know, one of the greatest ways to change our paradigm is with spaced repetition. So I highly encourage you to go back and read those books. You will think that he put new pages in if you've already read those books before. Why? Because you're in a different place now. You've had maybe decades of living since you maybe first read that book, if you've read it before. And now, based on what you've learned and what you've seen, you'll go back and it'll be like new manna from heaven, because the information hasn't changed, but you have changed. But anyway, in his second book, The Cashflow Quadrant, he talks about 4 quadrants. He talks about the E quadrant, which is people who are employees. He talks about the S quadrant, who are people who are self-employed. He talks about the B quadrant, which are people who are business owners. And then he talks about the I quadrant, which are people who are getting the majority of their income from investing. And something that I've made clear, and you can go back to some of the replays, is that, you know, even though in the book he kind of makes the E and the S quadrant the bad guys and the B and the I quadrant the good guys, in actuality, when you look at people who have created great success, they typically operate in all 4 quadrants simultaneously. But they do have an emphasis on creating the I quadrant. Now, what's the I quadrant all about? The I quadrant is simple. The I quadrant exists so that you have enough proceeds coming off your investments to fund your desired lifestyle. Let me say that again. You have enough coming in from your investments to fund your desired lifestyle, which brings us to the second piece of homework. And you know you'll get so much homework this early in the morning. You figured out where you are, right? Now I want you to figure out another figure, and this figure is your desired level of income. Look at the expenses you have right now, and you say, hey, listen, if I had it all together, this is how much I'd like to be able to live on. How much do you want to be able to live on? How much do you want to be able to give? How much do you want to have just sitting somewhere? Figure those numbers out. You might say, Tony, this is a lot. You know, one of the biggest things that impact us not getting to the place we want to be. My pastor says you'll never get to the place, you'll never find your destiny until you fix your money thing. Most people are so busy on that treadmill, they never have time to think. Another book by Robert Kiyosaki is called Retire Rich, Retire Young. And in that book, he talks about the fact that he and his wife got to the point where they were able to get out of the rat race. That's his term, the rat race. And it wasn't because he was making millions of dollars. It's because his living expenses at the time were $5,000, and he had investments that were at $10,000. And once he reached that point, he considered himself out of the rat race, and the number one thing that gave him was time to think. Time to think. And everything that he built after that, his Rich Dad Empire, his other investments, came because he finally had time to think. Well, I'm going to encourage you, my friend, regardless of how busy you are, you matter. Take this time and think. Figure out where you are. Figure out your desired living expenses. And let's proceed. So anyway, when it comes to investing and you say, okay, now I get it. I need to get from, where I am right now to being in a position where I can put away 50%, well, give away 10 and put away 40% of what I make. Here's the question I want you to ask yourself. How much money would you need to be making in order to be able to do it? How much money would you need to be making in order to be able to give away 10% and live on 50%? And that 50% includes your taxes now. And that 40% you have that you can put into investments. How much would you need to be making? You may say if you're paycheck to paycheck, it's simple. You may say you might need twice as much. Is it really? Sit down and take the time. You matter. Take the time to figure it out. How much would you need to be having? How much would you need to have coming in to be able to put away that 40% in investments, give away 10%, and live on the other 50%. All right? So that's your second piece of homework. I hope you're writing these down, or you can go back to the replay and replay this. But I'm telling you, taking these steps, you will thank me later. You know, you may say, well, it's a lot right now. Yeah, I know it's morning time, it's breakfast. But listen, take the time to do this. It matters. Now, the distance between where you are and that desired, now let's leave the desired out for a moment. The distance between where you are and the third number I showed you, that's the one I just talked about, the number you need to be at in order to do that 40%, 10% giveaway. In order to do that, there's a gap, right? Or maybe it's not. Maybe you can just say, hey, thanks for the info, Tony. Let's do it. And off you go. And I'll tell you where to go off in a moment. But maybe there's a gap there. Well, the purpose of that gap is to move you into action. You know, I talked about this earlier, that the biggest threat you have is disengagement. Well, if you don't see the way to get to where you want to go, you can be disengaged. I'm here to tell you how to get empowered. The gap between where you are and being able to do the 50% rule is where you need to increase your income. You know, I have a link here for the Octagon method. That is a free resource that shows you 8-step pattern to create additional income in cracks of time. Why? So you can fill that gap. So you can start having more money coming in. Because if you can have more money coming in, you will get to the point where you can do that 40% sock away for investments, 10% give to charity. All right. Now, what do you do once you get there? What do you do once you've taken some of the things? And we're going to be talking about other ways to make that happen and tangible steps to make that happen in the next episodes or so. But I wanted to give you this because this sets the whole framework. And this is something that Grant Cardone did in the business bootcamp, was he set a framework for the information that was to follow. So what are the 3 things? I'm going to go into this, then I'm going to let you go and give you something to think about. Once you have this 40%, and for fun, I would tell you to take the numbers, play the numbers again here, and say, if I was able to put away 40% of my income, how much would that be? And then multiply that times 12. Multiply it times 24, 36. Can you see how in 1 to 2 to 3 years' time, you can have a sizable amount of money that you could put into investments, that you could use to start getting that multiplier that we talked about earlier in previous episodes? That's how you create momentum, my friend. That's how you move yourself into the I quadrant. That's how you put yourself in a position where you can not only bless your family, but you can be a blessing to others. It's worth it. You're worth it. All right. 3 areas for investments I want you to think about. As you're accumulating this, what are the 3 places that you should invest? Number 1, you should be investing in yourself. Investing in yourself. You know, last week we talked about the whole idea of you put 40 hours into a job, put 7 hours into yourself. Investing in yourself, that's investment number 1. That might come by buying books. It might be buying courses. It might be going to seminars. Those are investments in yourself. And as Warren Buffett says, the greatest investment you can make is an investment in yourself. The second place you invest is in your business. Okay? This is why what we talked about, you know, that gap. How do you fill that gap? You start creating more income. How do you create more income? By having your own business. How do you have your own business? Go to the Octagon method. Hit the link. You're going to learn about that. But the key is start creating additional income. And then you invest in your business to help your business grow. Now, depending on what type of business you do, it may not take a lot of investment, which is good because you'll have time for number 3. But the key is make the investment. Be willing to invest in yourself. You know, the government gives great tax benefits for folks who are willing to invest in their own business. It's to stimulate the economy. So be willing to do that. Number 3, and I'll end with this. Number 3 is you invest in real assets that create cash flow. You know, going back to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talks about the difference between a liability and an asset. And it's a lesson that I think people still don't understand. The majority don't. Because if they did, then the number one thing you'd be going for is not bling bling. The number one thing you would not be going for is anything but how can I buy assets? Assets that will create cash flow. Because you see what happens? You start putting that money away into investments. Those investments start bringing out cash flow, which increases what you're able to do. And my goodness, you create a circle. You know, we've talked about the velocity of money. You know, being able to have investments that you put money into, you get that money out, and now you got the investment going, and you can put money into something else. And you start thinking that way, and you change your mindset because you're investing, number one, in yourself. Because you're doing that, you start changing your mindset about money. How can you help but get in the 5% club? How can you help but not be able to be a blessing to others? My friend, I don't care how old you are. You can start now to make that happen. You know, when you play, Rich Dad, Robert Kiyosaki has his book called Cash Flow. I'm sitting over there looking at it right now because I'm in the game room. And in that game, there's investments that are available to people who are still in the rat race. They're called unaccredited investors. And then there's a whole different set of investments in the game that are available for folks who are not in a rat race. They're called accredited investors. I encourage you today to do a internet search on the difference between an accredited investor and an unaccredited investor. Hey, Cheryl. Because I believe that when you do that, you're going to see that there's a difference. And a lot of the investments that are available to people who are in the accredited investor space are not available for people who are not accredited. Now, why do I say this? Should you not invest because you can't do accredited investments? No. Use what I've been telling you over the course of this video to become an accredited investor. Because once you get over that threshold, and the threshold is not insurmountable, you can do it. Then you can start investing in those things that just gives you crazy multiples of your money. And you're going to understand that because you're investing in yourself, which is that first investment we talked about. I get excited just sharing this with you. I hope you're getting excited hearing it. And I'm telling you, I'm fired up about you taking this information and making it work for yourself. Feel free to send me personal messages or comment below. I appreciate that. It helps me understand. And it helped me understand that today I needed to go a deeper dive on that 40% rule, which I call the 50% rule. You are a winner. And you're just looking for additional resources to win, which is why we have these Saturday morning power breakfasts. Now, the octagonmethod.com, there's a link somewhere probably that you can get to it. You can link to my link in bio. You can get it that way. Get a hold of that information. It's tangible steps to help you create additional income so you can close that gap. And you can do it in cracks of time. See, it's not this thing where you have to, totally renovate your life and just change everything to get to where you want to go. Sometimes it's just tweaks. It's new distinctions that'll help you get to where you want to go. And my friend, I want that for you. So go to the octagonmethod.com. I know this has been a blessing if you've been paying attention. Take some time and think on it. This is the reason why I don't go an hour, 2 hours with these talks is because I really want to be a bite-sized morsel to go with your breakfast. Get it? To go with your breakfast that then you can think on for the rest of the week and that you can put into application. And because it's Saturday morning, right, when I'm recording this, if you're watching this live or soon after, you're able to take some time during the weekend to start really thinking about how this can apply for you. I'm excited about you moving forward. I look forward to hearing your success story. Be blessed. Make this week a masterpiece. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.